I think this team, the Jaguars, have the ability to go from worst to first in the AFC South.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it.
And I know it's going to sound crazy because Trevor Lawrence wasn't great his rookie season, but I think Doug Peterson is going to provide stability for that offense. Lawrence is going to develop, in my opinion, and they have talent. Like, the defense isn't devoid of talent. The offense isn't devoid of talent. Look at the free agents. Cam Robinson, Andrew Norwell, AJ Cann, DJ Chark, Laquan Treadwell. I'm re-signing Cam Robinson and Andrew Norwell. I feel like they have to re-sign their offensive lineman, still draft one. You know, just you can move Evan Neal, right tackle, left tackle, Icky, right tackle, left tackle, doesn't matter. But I'd still draft one. And this past season, Miles Jack didn't grade out well, but I think he's still a phenomenal linebacker. Brandon Linder didn't grade out well, but I think he's still a really good center in the NFL. They have $59 million in cap space.
Ton of money.
I feel like DJ Chark coming off an ACL, it's a better decision for them to go and get a wide receiver that's not him. Maybe a Mike Williams goes, maybe an Amari Cooper or Chris Godwin or
a reunion, Allen Robinson.
That would be good too. If they can't land those guys, I would bring back DJ Chark because the weapons aren't bad if you have Chark, Jones,
They just don't have a one.
and Shenault out there. Doug Peterson.
I still believe in Shenault.
Doug Peterson. He's not a one.
Nah,
He's not a one.
as a Swiss Army knife type.
A poor man's Debo.
Very poor.
Yes.
Yep.
Very
Doug
poor.
Peterson is there. I don't think you can rule out Zach Ertz going to Jacksonville, and they would need tight end. They need tight end help.
Dolan Schultz.
He's gonna get tagged.
It came out?
They would pay him like $10 million if their season they tag him.
That's
He's
fair.
gonna get
That's
tagged.
all day.
For me, I look at their offense and I feel like it should look like this in my brain. Trevor Lawrence, ETN, Chark, because I don't know if any big-time names going back to Jacksonville.
That hurt.
I know.
Marvin Jones, Shenault, bringing in Zach Ertz, and on the offensive line, Robinson, Norwell, Linder, Corbett. So bringing in Austin Corbett to replace AJ Cann, and then Evan Neal. I don't think the weapons are bad. I thought the offense was shit. If Doug Peterson is there with these weapons, with an offensive line that is above average, Trevor Lawrence can have a bounce-back second season and be very good. And defensively, Josh Allen, he's a really good edge rusher. They need some defensive tackles. I'd sign Malik Collins from Houston. BJ Hill's an option from Cincinnati.
I like that.
You got to give Chason one more season. He's been disappointing, but you got to give him one more season.
Good prospect.
Miles Jack, he's coming back. Anthony Walker from Cleveland is really good. Shaq Griffin, Tyson Campbell on the secondary wing guard. And I hope Cisco gets a chance to start because I'm high on Cisco. I was high on him coming out of the draft. And I think this team, based on the ascension of Trevor Lawrence, can go from worst to first. If Trevor Lawrence is anything near a top 15 quarterback, the Jaguars can win the division. And it's not out of the realm of possibility. They can win this division if he's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL.
Oh, go. I know you want to speak about your guy.
It really hurt me. You didn't even mention James Robinson, man.
I'm not too worried about it. I think Etienne's better.
I mean, tearing your Achilles. What week was it? Was it the last week?
No, I don't think it was. Was it the last? It was.
It was late in the season.
I think it was against the Jets. Something like that. I think that Etienne is such a great pass catching back that you could use him out of the slot, or you could use him at like that type of formation that he will have success either way because they need wide receiver weapons. Personally, I think that that's why they were so willing to draft him so high because he has those pass catching abilities and also for the fact that him and Trevor played in college together. However, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I feel as if offensive line, it's essential that they put the money into their offensive line to protect Trevor Lawrence. This is the franchise. This is the highest touted prospect in the history of the game. If he is who we all think he is, Joel is 100% correct in the sense of assuming that it's possible they could take that worst to first leap. First in the division. Not first. It's a championship, but first in that division. And there's a lot of things that have to play out. You need to bring back Cam Robinson. You need to bring back Norwell. Sign Evan Neal, have him play right tackle. Did he play? He is designated as a right tackle right now.
Yep.
Is he?
Yes, I believe so. So you have him play right tackle for you. That's perfectly fine with me. Then you need to go out and you need to bring in some weapons. If you bring in you bring back Allen Robinson back to a situation where he's already been in Jacksonville. He's comfortable with the environment. I believe that it's already been reports that he would be interested in coming back to play in Jacksonville. That's very intriguing to me, without a doubt. I look at DJ Chark, and the knee injury does scare me. I don't know if I'd be willing to give him a contract to come back. I like Laviska Shenault in the Swiss Army knife type role. And honestly, you bring Allen Robinson into this offense, Laviska Shenault can be a little bit more interesting as a wide receiver to me. Yes, I understand he's not the best wide receiver. However, now you bring in another option that's going to draw a little bit more attention away from him. Maybe his game could open up. It's hard to expect these wide receivers to really take this huge leap in their game early in their career. Some players take time, and I think Laviska Shenault is one of those guys. I think that he has elusiveness. He has power in his game, both running the football and as a pass catcher. It's very exciting he's a very exciting wide receiver if they can get him the ball in certain spaces. And I like James Robinson. I mean, regardless of how I feel about him personally, I say this because I have him in fantasy on my dynasty team, and he was electric last season. He was one of the reasons why my team was so good. So I'll always have a place in my heart for him. And it was really shocking for me to hear on draft day them draft ETN. But I do believe that you can have James Robinson still be your main back and still incorporate ETN in the wide receiver role or a wide receiver type role because he is so talented with his hands.
Yeah, and real quick, I looked up. So Evan Neal played 3 positions across the offensive line. He started 13 games at left guard, 12 games at right tackle, but 15 games at left tackle this past season. So he can play right. He can play guard too, but it sounds like he can play left or right tackle. I'm assuming if they take him number 1 overall, they envision him being their franchise left tackle eventually. You know, they still could sign Cam Robinson if they want to just have some depth or protection. If Evan Neal,
the right tackle,
or that too for sure. But I think this offseason, it's really just building on this offense, right? I know we've talked a lot about the receivers. I don't think they have a number 1. I think Marvin Jones is a pretty firm number 2. You know, he had some good years in Detroit.
He can go.
But agreed. He's someone that I think you could replace. Not that he will be replaced, but he's a replaceable player that I don't think you're going to go out and miss him, right? I don't think, you know, Marvin Jones isn't someone that you really want to rely on as this franchise wide receiver too.
You can bring in Michael Gallup to do the same, if not more.
So I think Trevor Lawrence, I don't hate the worst to first because the division's bad. Right, we talked about Tennessee and the Colts, who it's going to be hard because Tennessee they were just the number 1 seed. So it sounds like we're shit talking.
Yes, because I feel that
they were 1 seed and had what 11 or 12 wins.
I think they had 12.
12 in a 17-game season. To be fair,
correct. Let me look.
But even still, they could do it just because of how bad the division is, rather than how much they really improve. Like if we do expect Tennessee and the Colts to both 12. If we do expect Tennessee to take a step back and the Colts and both of them be around 9-10 wins, like they could win 9-10 games, have the tiebreaker, and win the division. And I think that's best case scenario. Trevor Lawrence, who had a down year, which however you want to put it, if you think he played bad, if you think it's Urban Meyer, the weapons, the injuries, whatever it might be, it was a very disappointing season. He was the favorite to win, you know, Rookie of the Year. You mentioned it, one of the highly touted prospects we've ever seen. But I think this offseason, it's just kind of how we talked about how you have to prove Baker's the guy. We are like, I agree, we're kind of past that point. But now you have to prove that Trevor Lawrence is the guy. And by that, you just have to go invest in the offense. I think Doug Peterson is a tremendous start. Urban Meyer, I was out on day 1 with him. So I think bringing in Doug Peterson, someone who's won a championship, he's been a quarterback, someone who's going to be able to relate to Trevor and not be, honestly, a dickhead like Urban Meyer was, for lack of a better term. I think number 1 overall, you go with tackle if you like Neal or if you like Icky being more of that run blocking type of guy. But I agree. I think ETN can be used in a plethora of different ways. Not that I question it, but it is interesting that they have a whole new front or coaching staff that didn't select ETN. That was Urban Meyer's pick. He wanted ETN. So I am curious to see how this next coaching staff is going to bring him in. Without a doubt, you can make the argument he's their best offensive piece. So they're going to use him one way or the other. But it's going to be, I think, a bit different than at least Urban Meyer was expecting to use him.
I mean, the thing with the Jaguars is that they won 3 games last year. I think they had the talent of a 6-7 win team. They just didn't win those games because Urban Meyer wasn't good. I mean, versus the Bengals, they blew a lead. Versus they beat the Dolphins, I believe. Mm-hmm. But they should have doubled their win total from last year. So I'm looking at the Jaguars as a team that they have the talent of a 6-win team. You make moves with all the cap space you have this offseason. You have the first overall pick in the draft. Can easily be a 8 to 10 win team next year.
it all depends on how Trev progresses. If he's able to develop into, like you said, a top 15 quarterback, I don't hate it. And you have the money, you have the draft picks, even if you want to trade back up into the first, if there's a receiver who falls, they have all the opportunity to. It's going to be, can Doug Peterson get the most out of Trevor Lawrence?
By the end of the season, Trevor Lawrence is going to be regarded as the best quarterback in this division by far.
I'm excited. I do believe Trevor's going to take a huge step.
Doesn't have much to compete with.
No, I know, but I'm saying it's going to happen.
Word. I agree.
I'm looking at the schedule real fast, and not to nitpick, but I'm just looking. The Bengals game definitely was close, 24-21, just for conversations purposes. Buffalo was an impressive win. To win 9-6, that was very impressive. Outside of that, I'm looking at Indianapolis 23-17, Atlanta 21-14. These are that they lost, correct? Outside of that, they're really against the Jets. That was a game that they could have won too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But really, they're just a bad team overall. You play games against Denver, games against Arizona, games against Tennessee,
close, though.
Game against, but 31-7 against Seattle, who was one of the worst teams in the league. Arizona 31-19, Denver 23-13, San Fran 30-10, Tennessee 20-0.
Let me ask you
A
this.
couple games are getting blown out, but
let me ask you
majority are somewhat close.
Talent-wise, what's the difference between the Jaguars and the Dolphins last year?
Their defense was better.
Yes.
They had more
How
talent
much
on
better,
their
though?
defense. I would say pretty significant.
There's not an edge rusher on Miami that's as good as Josh Allen.
There's not.
No.
There's not linebackers. There's not a linebacker on Miami that's as good as Jacksonville. Jacksonville's linebackers.
You're saying Miles Jack?
Miles Jack had a down year.
No, he did, but I think the grading didn't do him justice.
Jerome Baker, solid.
He is a solid.
Miami just really has corners and then Javon Holland.
Yeah.
That's it. Their defense was able to be.
Christian Wilkins, he's a solid D
Jalen
lineman.
Phillips had a good rookie year.
And you said Jalen Phillips.
The Dolphins were one of the Dolphins were
sacks
one
by rookie.
The Dolphins
Dolphins.
were one of the
For
worst.
the Dolphins.
The Dolphins were one of the worst ranked defenses in the NFL at some point last year. Brian Flores turned them around because of his outstanding game
He's a great
plan,
coach.
and because they faced a weaker schedule. But you look at offensively, Miami had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. They had no running back. And then weapons-wise, you got Parker, you got Waddle, but that's Gesicki. But you have no time to throw to him. Talent-wise, the Jaguars and the Dolphins are very similar.
Coaching was the biggest.
The reason why the Jaguars won 3 games is because they didn't have a good coach. Their coach was the worst in the NFL, the worst that we've seen in history. You can even make the argument. Like, Brian Flores goes to Jacksonville. If he was there last year, they're definitely a 6-7 win team. Like, without a doubt.
I don't doubt that.
Definitely not your worst take.
No,
Definitely not.
No.
It's definitely
Not
not.
even within the last 30 minutes.
So,
I want to piggyback off that.
Before we move on.
Yeah. We're going to move on.
Who do you think is going to have more wins? Dolphins or Jacksonville next year?
Jacksonville.
All right, friendly wager. How much?
I'll bet 100. He's at friendly
Come on,
wager.
bro. Who's your guy?
Fine. $100.
You got McDaniel.
Let's throw 100. Let's throw 100.
Got McDaniel.
It's a season-long bet.
Well, what about a jersey? It's more than 100.
Interesting. All right.
I don't want a Jacksonville jersey.
You don't want a Trevor Lawrence jersey? That'd be kind of tough.
Nope.
Can't root for Tom Brady. Can't root for Trevor
All right,
Lawrence.
whatever jersey you want and whatever jersey I want. That's the deal.
That's tough.
All right. That's a good deal.
I like that.
So Jacksonville versus Miami.
That's going to equal more than 100.
Drop down
Yeah, it is.
in the comments. Who's winning more games next season, the Jaguars or the Dolphins?